adesso prova a farli parlare.
Hello, and for the penultimate time this season, a very warm welcome to the TCR Europe Series. This weekend we're in Barcelona at the Circuit of Catalunya for rounds 13 and 14 of the series that began way back in April at Paul Ricard at Le Castellet in the south of France. It's Mark James in the commentary box for the penultimate time this season. One race today, one race tomorrow, and that will decide both driver and the team's winners of the TCR Europe prize. As you can see there, it's a very different day to the weather that greeted us when we landed in Barcelona last night in the middle of a thunderstorm. This afternoon, it's been dry, warm, sunny, and temperatures currently in the mid-20s. A very pleasant evening, and we have the largest entry list of the season so far. 32 cars entered for this Barcelona race weekend. 32 cars will indeed take the grid, and some very interesting names just joining as one-offs at the end of the season. Klim Gavrilov, you saw there a moment ago from TCR Russia. You've got the likes of Ash Sutton, former British touring car champion. There he is in car 116, won 2 rounds of TCR UK this year. He's in one of the West Coast Racing Volkswagens that are here as one-off at the end of the season. We've got Norbert Michelic with us. We've got Mike Halder there, who is a race winner and came very close to winning the TCR Germany crown. We've got Peter Fullin from the Czech Republic, won in TCR Germany at Most, his home event of TCR Germany this year. So a real quality field to round off the year here in Spain. But it's that man, Attila Taschi, who is on pole for this race 1 of the weekend. And it's an all-Honda front row, an all-Hell Energy Racing front row, because alongside Attila Taschi is his teammate Josh Files from the UK. And mathematically, they both came to Barcelona with a chance of the driver's title. That mathematical possibility has gone for Files. It's still there for Taschi, but what they're concentrating on is the team's championship. And the results from qualifying means that Hell Energy Racing with KCMG now equal on points with Target Competition. And so that is a battle that will go down to the wire. But this is the man that could well win the Drivers' Championship this afternoon. Mikel Azcona from Spain, in front of his home fans, leads the Drivers' Championship and in fact has extended his lead over Jean-Carl Venet after qualifying. Dusan Borkovic, third in the drivers' standings, but really, truly, it's probably going to be between Azcona and Venet this afternoon. Venet has qualified in 13th place, bitterly disappointed, saying to me earlier on that the car is so heavy with the compensation weight after winning, well, dominating the previous race weekend at Monza. And so 13th, something like half a second or so off the pace in qualifying, so didn't go through to Q2, and so a frustrated Venet will start from 13th on the grid in both races. But it'll be Azcona starting from the second row of the grid alongside Borkovic, and so let's just confirm the complete grid for you ahead of round 13. As I said, Taschi and Files on row 1, Azcona and Borkovic on row 2, Norbert Michelic and Ash Sutton on row 3, Danny Nage, it is on row 4 alongside Mike Halder, Peter Terting and Chris Ricard, Julien Brichet returning alongside Rhys Barr, Jean-Carl Venet and Maxime Potty, Stian Paulsen and Andreas Beckman, another of the West Coast Racing Volkswagens, Ollie Taylor alongside Bertrand, Gavrilov from TCR Russia alongside Jessica Beckman, Jens Renaud Muller alongside Danny Cruz. There is one big change for you. If you saw the provisional grid, Francisco Abreu, you see there in 29th position, getting a 10-place grid penalty, originally qualified 19th. And right at the back of the grid is Hernando in one of the Peugeots. 3 Peugeots here this weekend. Enrico Hernando from Spain, not setting a competitive time in qualifying, and so we'll start from the back of the grid. But there you have it, a massive grid for this penultimate race of the season. I'm going to say all Azcona has to do is to win, and he is guaranteed to be the champion, but I suspect that the 2 men ahead of him, Attila Taschi and Josh Files, will have something to say about that. Taschi leads the field away then for the green flag lap. there is Danny Nage. After qualifying, Nage and Files drop out of this battle. I was saying originally it was a six-way mathematical scrap for the driver's title because of the points that Azcona scored in qualifying, the 3 extra points. That means now mathematically Danny Nage and Josh Files can no longer catch Azcona. So even if he has an absolute nightmare of a weekend, which you have to say that his consistency this year will suggest that's not really likely. Huge cheers for him from the Spanish fans at the end of qualifying. And so we then start to work out exactly where Jean-Carl Venet will finish. And so will the championship battle stay alive until the final round tomorrow? There is Venet in the Audi. And a stunning weekend for him in Monza. We knew that the Audi would go well there, but was the perfect weekend for Venet. 55 points out of a possible 55. The 5 points for qualifying on pole, 25 points for each race victory. Puts him back very much into contention for this TCR Europe Drivers' title. But the downside is that he gets the compensation weight for having such a good weekend. And so Jean-Carl Venet in the Leopard Lukoil Audi RS3 LMS is languishing rather outside the top 12. What can he do? All the action will be at the front. And so as well as keeping an eye on row 1 of the grid for the 2 Hondas, you have to say, keep an eye on row 2. Andriana Borkovic saying a little prayer for hubby Dusan, who will start alongside Azcona. There is the target competition Hyundai. So Borkovic will start from P4. Further back, Peter Terting, Chris Richard, and Rhys Barr. Rhys Barr P12, Chris Richard P10, Peter Terting P9. And the KCMG Hell Energy team have brought in Mike Halder from TCR Germany in the Honda Civic to give their chance of the team's trophy a huge boost this weekend. There is Petr Fulin from the Czech Republic. I mentioned him a little earlier. He won the TCR Germany event at Most in the Czech Republic, his home event, but not being registered for championship points. That was a one-off for him, and indeed a one-off in TCR Europe to end the season. So, nerves in the pit lane rising. We are moments away from round 13 of 14 in this 2018 TCR Europe Series in Catalonia. And I had a brief chat with Attila Tashi on the way down. Seemed fairly relaxed. He'd just done all of his warm-up exercises and his juggling and his pulling on the elastic ropes and getting himself mentally prepared, and he seems quite chilled. He knows exactly what he has to do. He has his teammate alongside him, and he has the championship leader right behind him on row 2. The green flag waves then. We're watching for the lights. They go on, they go off. A great start from both Tashi and Files and Azcona. That was Mikulic, though, just behind. And indeed, just moving across to block his Files. So Azcona happy to play a bit of the waiting game. A little bit of contact, I think, between Borkovic and the back of Files. Norbert Mikulic tucks in just behind Mikael Azcona. They're safely through the first few corners. Ash Sutton there in the striking liveried West Coast Racing. Oh no, that's Milkovic in the Cupra, the Line Racing, the second Serbian driver along with Borkovic, as Ash Sutton sticks his elbows out, gets involved. And Mike Halder in the Honda getting stuck in as well. So then, lap 1, 23 minutes plus 1 lap, and we're already talking about a safety car while Milkovic's Cupra is recovered. So safety car will come out then, not even 1 lap done. Attila Tashi leads from Josh Files, as we see Jens Renault Moller off track as well. So Tashi from Files, from Borkovic, from Azcona, from Mikulic, then Ash Sutton, Danny Nage, Chris Richard. Jean Carvenet has worked his way up 4 places, is in the points in 9th, ahead of Mike Halder. Outside the points at the moment, Peter Terting, Julien Brichet, Berton Potty, Paulsen, Andreas Beckman, Barr, Taylor, Comini and Davidovsky. Comini we've hardly mentioned. Bitterly disappointed, doesn't really know what's happening this weekend. Was shrugging his shoulders when I spoke to him in qualifying. So let's see the start again. And already you can see cars jinking around the stopped Cupra right at the back of the field. And I don't think we're going to know. We won't see it from this camera angle. The field getting cleanly away in the run-up towards turn 1. No, the marshal's body language says it all. From my position in the lofty heights of the grandstand, I'm looking down onto the grid, and I can see that the recovery vehicle has now arrived with the stricken Cupra. So fingers crossed this will be a relatively short safety car period. We briefly saw Marie Beaucoppens in the sole DSG car. The DSG trophy already having been won by Giovanni Altoe, who's not here. And there is Abreu. We mentioned him earlier on. He had the problem in qualifying. He got a 10-place grid penalty. And not having a weekend to remember. Already in the pits with the bonnet up. Some tense faces at Hell Energy. At the moment, their guys are first, second and 10th. What they need to be doing in this battle for the team's championship. The cars in the twilight here in Barcelona. This the last race of the day. Tomorrow's race slightly earlier in the afternoon at about 5 to 4. So Borkovic ahead of Azcona on the track, but he's something like 31 points down. And so both Borkovic and Venet really needing a DNF from Azcona on his home event. 126 under investigation. Overtaking under yellow. That's Jessica Beckman in the West Coast Racing Golf. So the recovery work taking a little longer than I thought. So the clock's still ticking down. So we didn't actually get 1 lap in before the safety car came out. There is Jessica Beckman, mentioned a moment or so ago. Jessica, like her brother Andreas, starting off in karts, Swedish champions, both of them, and then moved to Rallycross last year before switching to TCR this year. A dual program for the pair, TCR UK and TCR Scandinavia. And the best result for Jessica was a podium finish at Brands Hatch earlier in the year. Best result for her brother was a win at Croft last month. So let's talk about Mikael Azcona for a moment. He is on the verge of taking the TCR Europe title at home. Mikael Azcona has, I think, has admitted it himself that he's got an unfortunate streak of finishing second in various championships. Really could do with putting that behind him this weekend. He's driven a sensible championship, only the one victory this year, but a string of podium finishes, a string of sensible finishes mean that Mikael Azcona, and I think that's applause for the marshals because the safety car will be coming in this lap. So we will have a little under 15 minutes plus one lap of this race to run. A solitary victory for Azcona coming back in May at Zandvoort. But the driver he reminds me of is Andy Prio, who's won the World Touring Car Championship with a similar story in that the number of wins weren't all that great, but he was just banging in the seconds, thirds and fourths and picking up the points. So we are racing once again. The safety car has peeled in. Attila Tashi leads the field around turn 16 then. We are racing once again. Green flag waving, Attila Tashi ahead of Josh Files, Dusan Borkovic, Mikael Azcona and Jean-Carl Venet has made his way up from 13th to 9th at the moment. Borkovic is having a serious look at Josh Files. Borkovic, you'll remember, started the year with a perfect score at Paul Ricard, pole and then 2 race wins. Jean-Carl Venet has made up another place as Enrico Hernando, another Spanish driver in one of the Peugeots. He's now under investigation. So an extremely mixed race for the Spaniards. We've got one potentially on the verge of taking the title and another one potentially in trouble. Oh, that was Mike Halder running wide over the curbs. Somebody else getting it quite squirrely in the background coming off the curbs. And let's remind you of the points position at the moment. If things stay as they are, Azcona will be on 179 points. And Tashi will be on 153, which will mean that Azcona cannot then be caught. Oh, that's Maxime Potty, very, very wide across the grass. Coming up the start-finish straight, getting Ollie Taylor past him. So that's the scrap for 17th, way down outside the points. Stian Paulsen, we've hardly talked about, making his way up to 14th, still outside the points. But if you ask Stian what he wants from this weekend, he says, just to be able to take the car home at the end of the weekend, please, that'll do for me. Let's take another look at that. And that was, I don't think it was contact, but there was really nowhere for Maxime Potty to go other than across the grass. From another angle. Yeah, I think he just ran out of road. I don't think there was any contact between Maxime and Stian. And that, compounding his weekend, is Stefano Camini, who is really struggling in that car at the moment, really struggling to get to grips with it. No changes at the head of the field, though. Atalatashi still leads from Josh Files. 0.6 of a second now, the gap between the two teammates. Dusan Borkovic is still third. Mikhail Avkanar is fourth. Just popping out to have a little look was fifth place Norbert Mikelic. Ash Sutton is sixth. Danny Nage is seventh. Jean-Carl Venet still eighth, ahead of Chris Richard and Mike Halder. Oh, and that's Danny Cruz. What's happened there? Steam from the front of the car, so there's been contact of some sort. But I don't know whether it was with another car or with a barrier. Potentially, we might be able to have a look at that back if we've got it. As Jean-Carl Venet quietly picks off Danny Nage and so moves up to seventh. Steadily picking his way through the field. Ash Sutton is next on his list in the West Coast Volkswagen. The gap between first and second has opened up now, 9/10 between Tashi and Files. Borkovic breathing down Files' neck. Oh, that was only going to end one way, wasn't it? That was Stian Paulsen. And having a go at Berton, Nathaniel Berton, in the second come-to-you Audi. Now, will that have attracted the attention of the race director? Let's take another look at it. And really, Berton was, well, Paulsen was going for a gap, and Berton made sure he closed the gap before it really got going. I'm wondering if that was a racing incident in my book, but what do I know? Under 10 minutes of the race left then. Rhys Barr moves up into 12th as a result of that little incident. Over a second now, 1.2 between Tashi and Files. Files playing the rear gunner to perfection here, allowing his teammate to pull away, and Files holding off the very determined Dusan Borkovic, less than half a second behind. Avkanar seems more than content at the moment with fourth place. Mikelic still fifth. Ash Sutton still sixth, holding off Jean-Carl Venet. As you can see, the pair going for it in the background. Venet jinking to the side, but Ash Sutton has the line. Millimeters between the two. And indeed, that incident between Paulsen and Berton under investigation. So let's see what, if anything, is done. As we're watching the battles towards the bottom end of the top 10. Ash Sutton, there he is, still holding off Jean-Carl Venet. And behind Venet, Danny Nage and Chris Richard. Julien Brichet now in 10th. And Berton into the pits. Now potentially damage caused by that incident involving Paulsen. There is Stian in the Cupra. So Paulsen now 13th, ahead of Andreas Beckmann, and just behind Rhys Barr, you saw briefly there. And Mikhail Avkanar, more than happy to sit in fourth place at the moment with things going his way. Not even a win for Tashi would bring him up to striking distance of Mikhail Avkanar. Nearly 2 seconds the gap now between Tashi and Files. Again, Files holds the line for the right-hander. Files currently 6th in the Drivers' Championship behind Danny Nage by a single point, so he'll leapfrog the Hyundai if things stay as they are. Very consistent gaps, coming down fractionally, but not so you'd notice. 39 hundredths, 32 hundredths. So as I said a moment ago, Files playing the perfect rear gunner to Tashi, allowing his teammate to get off up the road. Little puff of smoke from Dusan Borkovic, just locking up the tyres, slightly under braking. Oh, and damage to Norbert Mikulic's car, the number 555 car, and that body language says it all. Stefano Camini having a weekend to forget here as we see the leading pack. Borkovic still all over the back of Files, but can't do anything about the Honda. And has the damage on, or the damaged bodywork on Mikulic's car fallen off, or will he be called in? And you can see there the lights flashing on Borkovic's car, the frustration starting to show, but Files is having none of it. Once again moving to block. Borkovic will go round the outside, and indeed picks his moment. And also, oh, that was Azcona going through as well. So Files has left the door just a fraction open for Borkovic to go through. Azcona's gone through as well. And I think that's Mikulic up with them as well. And Files has dropped back 3 places in just that sequence of corners. And so has the defense of second place taken its toll on his tyres, and indeed Ash Sutton now goes up the inside. Venet goes through as well, so this is all starting to happen in the last 5 or 6 minutes of this race. Mikulic goes through, so all change then in the leading positions as 69, which is Jean-Carl Venet, is getting queried for track limits, which is exactly what he didn't want. So then, all change at the top. Attila Tashi still leads. And that's Ash Sutton, I think, going past Azcona, as Azcona goes back at him. And what is Azcona doing? There was me saying how cautious he'd been and driven very sensibly. Now getting involved in a scrap with Ash Sutton, who's here as a one-off this weekend, and has got Jean-Carl Venet right behind him now. Through the little left-right chicane at turns 14 and 15, through the long right-hander at turn 16 onto the start-finish straight. So, Borkovic in second, Mikulic in third, Sutton in fourth, ahead of Azcona, Jean-Carl Venet, Danny Nage, Chris Richard. Files has dropped all the way back to 9th, and Julien Brichet is still 10th. And one of the questions that was being asked earlier on by Ash Sutton was, what is the tyre degradation like amongst the Hondas and the Hyundais? So was he planning several hours ago to keep things up his sleeve until the final few minutes of this race? And at the moment, Ash Sutton is a whisker under 2 seconds away from a podium finish in his first appearance in TCR Europe. Behind him is championship leader Mikel Azcona. Behind Azcona is Jean-Carl Venet. So that revises the driver's points ever so slightly. So 177 for Azcona, Borkovic 154 if things stay as they are, 153 for Tashi and Venet, which will, as things currently stand, take the Drivers' Championship battle through to the final race, unless we're in for some last-minute shenanigans. Under 2 minutes of this race remaining then, plus 1 lap, remember. And Ash Sutton at the moment is standing between Mikel Azcona and the title today. If things stay as they are, then the battle will go down to the final round tomorrow afternoon. Does Azcona risk going for the position, or does he play safe and go for the points, knowing that Venet is behind him, probably aware that Venet is under investigation? Venet has a little look, thinks better of it. And Files comes in, and I do wonder if it's just the tyres, because that very robust defence of second place suddenly turned into 9th very quickly. But his job is done. Attila Tashi leads Dusan Borkovic by over 2 seconds as the clock steadily ticks down. Still Ash Sutton holding off Mikel Azcona. Jean Carvenet in close attendance in 6th place ahead of Danny Nage. Briefly, you saw Jaime Puig, who's the boss of Cupra Racing, desperately wanting a Spanish driver to win the crown in a Spanish car at the Spanish round. But if things stay as they are, then the battle will go down to the wire tomorrow. So the clock has hit 0. The next time the leader goes across the line will be the start of the final lap. Tashi extended his lead still further on that last lap, 2.1 seconds now ahead of Borkovic. So the leader on his final lap then. Attila Tashi, there he is. We've hardly seen him. Such has been his lead. We've been concentrating on the battles behind. But things starting to string out now as we head into this final lap. Tashi from Borkovic, from Mikelic, from Sutton, from Azcona, from Venet, Nage, Ricard, Brichet, and Rhys Barr has got into the top 10, with Peter Terting just outside the points in 11th. So something like 3 kilometers now stand between Attila Tashi and his second victory of the year. Borkovic just ahead of Mikelic. So it'll be a Honda ahead of two Hyundais, then a Volkswagen, then a Cupra, then an Audi. Such is the mix. And indeed, no change, it would appear. Sutton still ahead of Azcona from Venet and Nage, that he is in the 999 car. And Mikelic having a little look. And Attila Tashi throwing the car through the final few bends, coming into the little chicane at turns 14 and 15. Just the right-hander at 16 now remains. That was very wide across the curbing, but that doesn't matter. Taking the checkered flag for the second time this year as race winner is Attila Tashi, with Dusan Borkovic second, Mikelic is third, Sutton is fourth, ahead of Azcona, Venet, Nage, Ricard, Brichet and Barr. That's your top 10. Who've all taken the checkered flag. And so this is where the pen comes out. So Azcona gets the 10 points for 5th place, and so moves on to 177 points. Borkovic takes the 18 points for second and moves on to 154. 25 still on offer tomorrow, remember. And Tashi for that race victory is now on 153. So could still pip Azcona by a single point if he wins race 2 tomorrow and Azcona has a DNF. So things still hotting up. In 6th place is Jean-Carl Venet taking the 8 points, and so he will be on the same number of points as Tashi. And so we came to Barcelona with 6 drivers in the title fight. After qualifying, that dropped to 4 drivers in the title fight, and those 4 drivers are still in the title fight. Dusan Borkovic is now 2nd behind Mikel Azcona, having got back ahead of Jean-Carl Venet. So it's 177 points. There it is for Mikel Azcona, 154 for Borkovic, and both Tashi and Venet on 153. And so the battle for the driver's title remains alive, and it will go down to the wire. It'll go down to the 14th and final round of this TCR Europe Series, which will all be played out in the sunshine, I hope, here in Barcelona tomorrow afternoon. And Attila Tashi doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And the 2 extra points, had Azcona finished in 4th, not 5th, he would have been exactly 25 points ahead of Borkovic. But again, the championship scrap would have stayed alive because, again, mathematically, Azcona failing to finish tomorrow and Borkovic winning, Borkovic would potentially have won the title on the number of race victories. That, though, is all academic. It is what it is, and we have the race result that keeps the championship alive. Mikel Azcona finishing in 5th, Jean-Carl Venet finishing in 6th, Dusan Borkovic 2nd, but Attila Tashi taking the victory. And taking it in style in the end, the winning margin 3.4 seconds. Into the pit lane then comes Attila Tashi. He will stop virtually underneath me, right underneath the podium. And that is where our radio camera is waiting. We'll see Attila, Dusan and Norby pulling in. Norby already there, and Dusan in the background pulling into the 2nd spot. And let's get the reaction from the team, and let's see the reaction from the man himself. So Tashi has left things rather late in the year, took victory in the 2nd race in Assen. Still only 19 years of age. And look at that for a difference in height between Norby and Dusan. Both driving Hyundais. Norby for his own Mira racing team and Dusan for the Target competition team. And that also makes things very interesting in the teams battle. That will go down to the wire as well. Mads Fischer congratulating Attila. And Dusan getting the congratulations of the Target competition team of the Gummerer twins. Well done, Atti. Right, helmet off, please. Let's have a quick word. The old racing driver debrief body language. So, an entertaining first race here at Barcelona. At one stage, we thought that the championship was more than done and dusted, but not to be. So, we keep the drivers' title battle alive until the very final day of the season. We keep the team's battle alive until the final day of the season. The congratulations and the hugs still going on. Our man Alfredo is down in the pit lane, waiting to talk to our race winner. It's a long way off the ground, that is, when you get a hug from Dusan.
I had some problems on the end. In the end, I thought it was completely punctured because I couldn't.
So then let's get confirmation of our race result here in Barcelona for round 13 of TCR Europe. Attila Tashi takes the win from Dusan Borkovic ahead of Norbert Mikelic. Ash Sutton finishes 4th ahead of Mikel Azcona. Jean Calvinet is 6th. Then it's Danny Nage, Chris Richard, Julien Brichet and Rhys Barr from Ireland rounding off the top 10. Outside the points, unlucky for Peter Terting, Stian Paulsen, Andreas Beckman, Taylor, Potty, Beckman J that is, Davidovsky, Martin Rieber, Satyan Tirakul, Turbo to his friends, and Hernando with Fulin, Bo Coppens, Navarro, Gavrilov, Files, and Moller, Halder, Berton, Comini and Cruz, all non-finishers.
Attila Tashi, today was really the perfect day for you, huh?
Yeah, unbelievable. Never happened to me before. It was amazing. I would start from yesterday on FPs. The car was very good. We improved a lot from session by session. Also in Q1, in the qualifying, I could manage to pole position, which was my first in my touring car racing career, which was awesome. And now that I started from pole and I finished in pole in P1, it's just amazing, indescribable.
You would have wished more days like that this year.
Yeah, for sure. But unlucky, the first half of the season was unlucky for me. But luckily, on the second part, it became everything back.
Well done. All the best.
So Attila 24 points behind Mikel Azcona. 23 points behind is Dusan Borkovic. And in fact, let's get a confirmation of that. So Mikel Azcona really only has to finish tomorrow's race in the points, and he will have done it. Dusan Borkovic moves back up into second place. Tashi now tied with Jean Calvinet on 153 points, and it's still only those 4 men that can take the driver's title. Danny Nage, Josh Files, and then Chris Richard are way out of the battle now, with 25 points on offer for the race victory tomorrow. And Comini, you saw the body language earlier on, currently in 11th in the drivers' point standings after winning the TCR International Series for the first 2 years, and really shaking his head, cannot understand what's going on. Anyway, let's relive race 1 here in Barcelona.
You know, girl, when I'm with you, I always feel so good. I find a home in you. I find a longer and be. I see my future. I see my past. Present is good and all the rest. Girl, you got the power. And it's always been inside yourself. Ain't no man can stop you. It's a woman power. Feeling good is insane. You've got a strength that makes it worse. Girl, you've got the power. It's always been inside yourself.
So a fascinating race here in Barcelona. Not as many incidents as we've seen in some of the races this year, but I think our montage managed to catch quite a few of them as the drivers head out for the podium ceremony. Norbert Mikelic, you saw there, just donning his podium cap and heading out. And indeed, 3rd position for Norby in the Mira Racing Hyundai. In 2nd place and holding the Serbian flag, Dusan Borkovic, even taller than Norby by standing on the top step of the podium. Look at that reaction from Attila Tashi as he leaps out onto the podium. The congratulations from his friend and former team boss, Norby Mikelic, with a representative of the Hell Energy with KCMG team coming out to collect the team's prize as we get the national anthem very shortly. Maribo Coppens comes out as the winner of the DSG trophy. And JK as the highest placed driver in TCR Benelux. But next it will be the Hungarian national anthem.
Ok, congratulations para el vencedor, para Attila Tassi. Vamos con la entrega de premios.
I mentioned Maribo Coppens very briefly. She cannot win the DSG trophy. That's already been sewn up by Giovanni Altoe. The TCR Benelux title still very much up for grabs. And the trophies for, as Mauro from Yokohama presents the second place trophy to Dusan Borkovic. Third for Norby. And as I was saying right at the beginning of the program, an impressive list of one-off drives here in Barcelona this weekend. Norby Mikelic being one of them. Ash Sutton, who narrowly avoided finishing on the podium, another. But what can he do tomorrow with the reversed grid? So Maribo Coppens gets the DSG trophy. The TCR Benelux trophy will go to Jean-Carl Venet. Yves Baclen, who is the president of the Belgian Federation, presents Jean-Carl with his trophy. And then the photograph, please, lady and gentlemen. Just look at how big Dusan is. Towering over Attila. And once the photographers are happy, everybody grabs the champagne. So TCR Europe goes right down to the wire. Still a four-way battle, and it is, you have to say, Mikel Azconar's to lose. He has a 24-point advantage over, 23-point advantage, excuse me, over Dusan Borkovic, 24 over Jean-Carl Venet and Attila Tassi. Race 2, in fact, round 14 of the series tomorrow at 5 to 4 Central European time. We'll see you then.